Hello and welcome to Calvin's Garage. In case you didn't know, I like auctions. I made a video all about vehicle auctions. I'm constantly watching auctions looking for anything interesting or a really good deal. And most of my production equipment for this YouTube channel, these lights, the camera, the microphones, even this computer here, all came from state surplus auctions. And I just purchased my next vehicle at a construction equipment auction. This video is going to be all about my auction strategy and how I bought my truck. Now, if I'm just looking to look or looking for a really good deal and just seeing what comes along, then there really is no strategy besides just watching every single auction I can find. However, in this case, I needed a new truck. There was a particular truck that I had my eye on that I really wanted to get, but at the end of the day, I just needed a good, cheap truck. To accomplish this goal, I have a very specific strategy that I am going to share with you today. The auction I went to had something like 300 pickup trucks, not to mention all the SUVs, cars, flatbed trucks, service trucks, and more. That's a lot of vehicles to sort through, and my goal is to find the best one within my budget. I don't want to waste time inspecting vehicles that will not fall within my price range that I just will not be able to get, because then I could potentially miss a great truck. So my first action is to look at all the listings and sort by year. And I usually go from the oldest to the newest, and I don't really look at anything newer than 2019. Anything newer than 2019 I probably can't afford. And if for some reason I can afford it, there's usually a pretty big reason for that. I then prepare a list, either with the VIN numbers or the lot numbers of the trucks that I really want to look at in person. I'll actually make two lists. One of those lists is going to be my top candidates. These are trucks that look good, that I think will be in my budget, that I think I would really like. They're the top contenders. And then I have another list that just contains basically any truck that I think will fall within my budget. Then I'll go to the auction lot to inspect all the vehicles. I like going a few weeks before the auction because it's not too busy and I have time afterwards to gather all my thoughts. However, a lot of the vehicles don't show up until a couple days before the auction, and so I usually just end up going back to the auction site multiple times. I'll go once a few weeks before the auction, see all the vehicles that are there, get my list together, and then I'll go back maybe the first day of the auction and see if there's anything that I missed, take a second look at some of the vehicles. And at this last auction, I ended up just going there every day of the auction just to see what trucks are now within my price range and look at the ones and figure stuff out and take second looks. Now, I'm going to do a whole other video on how to inspect vehicles at an auction and get a good idea about their condition without taking too much time. As I'm inspecting these vehicles, I'm writing notes to myself. That way I can remember what I saw later. Now, these notes might be complex or they might be as simple as stay away if the truck is really bad. With the notes, I then rank the trucks on a tier list. Basically, I give them all grades A through F. Grade A trucks are in great shape. They're the first ones I'll bid on, but most likely they'll be out of my price range. Grade F trucks are the ones I wouldn't even buy if they were the last ones in my price range. Lastly, throughout the auction, as more and more trucks go out of my price range, I will sit down and reevaluate which ones to bid on. When the choice is whittled down further, I will simply rank the vehicles on a linear scale. Here are some of the trucks that I was looking at this last auction where I bought my Dodge Ram. So when I went to this auction and when I was first thinking about a truck to buy, this truck caught my eye and I was going to get it. I had been watching this truck since May. So over 6 months of watching this truck, it kept getting pushed back and
pulled at the auction at the last minute because they were waiting on the title. It's from Yellow Freight, and it's a 1994 Dodge Ram 2500. It has the 5.9 Cummins, the 5-speed manual transmission, 2-wheel drive, and it was not running. I thought this would be the perfect truck because it's a reliable platform, and probably the reason it's not running, first, they didn't have the key. Eventually, I guess they did find the key, but then it would crank but wouldn't start. I figured that it just had been sitting a while, and so it needed the injection pump bled, or possibly needed the fuel tank drained, maybe the fuel water separator. But anyway, I thought it would be a light restoration, and then it would be a nice, reliable vehicle, and it would be interesting for the channel. Unfortunately, somebody else also thought that it was a good vehicle, and their budget was bigger than mine. I was thinking I could pick this up. If I could pick it up for $1,000, that would be an incredible deal. And then I'd have plenty of budget left over to fix it up and make it a nice, reliable daily driver. Almost immediately, the truck, the high bid, went to $2,000. And at that point, I was thinking, yeah, it's still a good purchase. I could still get it. But it was kind of on the borderline of what I wanted to spend on this particular truck. Eventually, I decided to go all in and put my entire $4,000 towards this truck. And I was immediately outbid. And you can see by the price tag, it did go for quite a bit. And I kind of expected that because there was a Dodge Ram very similar in the last auction. It was also from Yellow Freight. The exterior was in a bit better shape, but the interior was completely torn apart. Like, the dash was all torn apart. And that one went for $4,000. It was also not running. It was also a 24 valve instead of a 12 valve. But that went for $4,000. So realistically, I should have known going in that it was going to go for quite a bit, but I was hoping it had flown under the radar. And the fact that I was hoping also that the fact that it said inoperable and that it had a huge dent in the back here kind of would scare people away, but apparently not. Another vehicle that I have been looking at and have been watching since May is this 2012 Chevy. It has the 6.6 Duramax. It does have kind of high mileage, but overall it was in really great condition. No check engine light. It ran and drove beautifully, but as you can see, once again, I was outbid. That happened pretty quickly. Another one where I was outbid fairly quickly was this one right here. And the only reason I was a high bidder on this one at all was the fact that the timed auction started late. So they didn't start accepting bids for this truck until the last day. I saw that it was accepting bids because I had been watching it, so I put in my bid of $4,000, and I was the high bidder for all of about 20 minutes before I was outbid, and as you can see, the final sales price was just way too high. So those two were kind of reaches. I knew that they would go higher than my max bid. This one was a little more realistic. I figured it would go in the $5,000 to $6,000 range. This one I knew if anyone else actually saw that it was available for bidding and got a chance to bid on it, it would go for quite a decent amount. Then when it came to the more realistic trucks, as the auction started winding down, I went there and was looking at the trucks and looking at the prices and figuring out, okay, I wrote out a list. These trucks are all in my price range right now. And I went and looked at all of them and took notes. And then when the bids started creeping up, I could make my decisions on which trucks I actually wanted to buy. Of the ones that I thought would be in my price range, this is the one that I thought had the most promise. This is a 2012 Chevy 2500. It's a crew cab, long bed. It does have high mileage, but it ran perfectly fine. It moved. The outside, despite that paint chipping right there, was actually in really good shape. And you can see here, it's had some modifications to it. So it was in really good condition. It was also four-wheel drive. It did have upgraded springs, so the rear springs were upgraded, so it had a higher load capacity as well. And just overall, it looked like a promising truck. The fact that it was still running and driving well, and it was maintained professionally, it was fleet maintained. Even though it was high mileage, it still showed a lot of promise, and the high mileage I figured would scare more people off, so I figured this truck would be a good truck to buy. So I put in my $4,000 bid, and then I was outbid within like an hour, and this was on the final day of the auction. So I moved on to my second choice. My second choice was this 2014 Ram 1500. It was not four-wheel drive, crew cab, short bed, which isn't the spec that I would like. It was also very high mileage, especially for a Ram. However, it didn't have the V8. It had the 3-liter diesel engine. So I was feeling a little bit better about that. It did have a check engine light on, but it was because the DPF was clogged. And because that's a consumable part, it should be fairly easy, simple, cheap to replace. But overall, it was in really nice shape. So this was my second choice, and I put in the bid after I was outbid on this one. I put in my bid on this one, and then was outbid within a matter of minutes. So then I went to my third choice, and my third choice was this 2016 Ram 1500. Extended cab, regular bed. It was kind of high mileage, and it did have some issues. It had a problem starting. I don't know whether it was the starter or it was the batteries / alternator, but it seemed like it seemed like it was having trouble cranking, but eventually it was able to get started, and the engine sounded all right. So I put in my bid on this one, and then was immediately outbid. And remember, this is all on the last day of the auction, and it was within minutes of when things started to close. Another one that I was very interested in was this one right here. Now, this one was a 2012 F-150. It's V6, extended cab, regular bed, and it only had 84,000 miles. Now, you may be asking, how does a vehicle with only 84,000 miles go for that cheap? Well, the reason is it had major electrical problems. The engine would stutter and almost die randomly. It also had traction control faults and a whole bunch of like warning lights and stuff. But I figured with only 84,000 miles on it, and the exterior and the interior too in pretty decent shape, compared to some of the stuff at the auction, it wasn't that bad. And I figured, if I could pick it up fairly cheap, it'd be worth fixing it because the engine wouldn't be all worn out. So I put a bid on it again and was almost immediately outbid again. Another truck that I bid on during the live auction, I put in a $4,000 bid on this truck. It's a 2006 Chevy 2500, 33,000 miles. It was definitely a yard truck, and overall it was in pretty good shape. The only major flaw for this truck was that it was missing a door here. The interior could use a little bit of cleaning, but other than that, it was good. So the main issue really was just this door missing and the age of the truck, which didn't really bother me. So I put in a $4,000 bid, but then I was outbid during the live auction. Another truck that I was looking at that I did not actually bid on was this Nissan Frontier. Now, in the photos, it looks pretty good, doesn't it? It's got this cool utility bed, which I thought was really nice. It's also 2019. Now, they didn't tell you the actual mileage of it, because the vehicle was just completely dead. So they couldn't look at the odometer, they couldn't start it, nothing. But I figured, it's 2019, so it can't be that high mileage, and, I'll just look through and I probably can figure out what's wrong with it. Luckily, I went to look at it in person before bidding on it, and when I got there in person, I realized that the entire thing, now, the vehicle was painted white from the factory, and then whatever company owned it painted it yellow. With regular, we're painted it yellow, and that's fine, whatever. But then, somewhere along the lines, somebody went through and painted it white again with house paint and a brush. So the entire truck was painted with house paint and a brush, and they didn't even do a good job. They didn't even finish it. The roof is only half painted. The rest of it is just yellow. And you can see all the brush lines, and it just looked horrible. It was somebody absolutely butchered this truck. Whoever bought this for $3,750, I feel kind of bad for them. I wouldn't have paid more than $1,000 for this truck. If I was really looking for a project, because the house paint, you can strip it and maybe it'll save the paint underneath, maybe you'll have to repaint it. Also, whatever damage has been done to the engine, probably also the oil was really dirty, there was physical dirt in the oil, so probably it was not well maintained. But if it had gone for $1,000 and if I had extra spending money and wanted a project, it probably could be saved, but close to $4,000, it's just not worth it. Another vehicle that I was watching was this tractor. Whoever got this got a really good deal at $650. If I had the extra time and space and money, this would have made a really nice project. So it's a 2011 Dodge Ram 1500. It is four-wheel drive. It's got, I think it's the extended cab, what do they call it, club cab. Regular bed, so not a short bed, which I can live with a regular length bed if it has a back seat, because anything that I would put in maybe a toolbox in the back, I could just put in the back seat. It had 154,000 miles. It was really nice on the outside. I remember seeing it listed online and passing it up at first, but then when I noticed that the bid was really low on it, I added it to my list to check, and then it ended up being in my top 3. And the exterior is in really good shape. It has this nice off-road bumper. It's an up-trimmed version. The interior was in really good shape as well. It had the running boards. Like I said, it's got a regular length bed with the club cab, which is a pretty good configuration. Regular cab long bed is great. Extended cab long bed gets a little long. Crew cab long bed is just way too long of a pickup truck, unless you have a specific purpose. But for a regular daily driver, it's just too long. And then all of the super short bed pickups, I don't really like those because the bed is just way too short. this bed is good enough for what I'll be doing most of the time. The fact that it has a back seat means that I have extra storage room. I can take passengers if I need to. And so overall, it's a good spec for a daily driver, do everything kind of pickup truck. So the exterior was in pretty good shape. There were some, like, you know, small dings and dents, like the off-road bumper is dented in. What's it shown here? Okay, so it's got some panel gap issues, but honestly, what do you expect from a Dodge? It's also got, I'm not sure if this is masking from like a paint job. I'm not exactly sure where this is, but you know, maybe something going on in the corner there. But overall, good truck. It ran really well. It is modified, so it does have this cold air intake. It also has a modified exhaust. The exhaust is a little loud, but overall the engine sounded like it was running good. When you go underneath it, you know, there's a little bit of surface rust, but overall not bad. Not anywhere near what you see for this generation of trucks in Vermont. I put in a $4,000 max bid, but I won the item for $3,500. That's because of that proxy bid. And honestly, comparing this truck to the other trucks that went for less than $4,000 that we already talked about, that one, complete piece of crap. That one definitely had major problems that needed to be addressed. That one had problems that needed to be addressed. That one has rust and problems with the engine that need to be addressed. Really, I think I got a pretty good deal. I am a little sad that I didn't get this truck. Like I said, I've been watching this truck, obsessing over this truck for over 6 months. Kind of sad to see it go, but I am excited for this new purchase.